So I started taking classes and starting an import-export business of New Age type products. Well, when I finally did leave the corporate world to do this, I realized what an illusion it was for me to be doing this import-export business, because I just did not have the capital to compete with the people who could buy containers. So I says, well, I've already got a part-time astrology practice. I'll just bump it up while I'm figuring out what I want to do. That was 15 years ago.
Look, here you are, you're today. You have an international practice. You're writing, you're doing all these fabulous things, and now you too get to decide, okay, I'm at this place. Now what would really make me happy?
Yes.
And that's exciting, isn't it?
It is. It also pushes all your buttons. You could have never told me that I would go on a television show in those days, ever, ever, ever.
Hey, 2 years ago.
And so the universe pushes your buttons, and it says, okay, you've got these lessons to learn. Sometimes you just have to step up and say yes.
Well, that was the way it was with this cable show. You know, it's like I got this voice inside my head that says, go do a cable show. I had no idea. It was a calling. I was very nervous about it because I like radio. I can be animated and alive, and here I'm sort of tied down to the chair a bit. But there was something inside of me said, jump, and there'll be an experience. And we've now been doing Create Your Own Reality for 1.5 years.
And so just like
I'm much more comfortable with it.
Just like we're talking about what's going on this summer, is everyone's being called to step up and trust this path without necessarily knowing what that path is going to be.
That's right.
There's no guarantees.
That's what I mean about a knowing faith. If they can get to that place where they can trust these gut feelings and that knowing faith, then I really believe that that's where they're going to have the bigger discoveries of their life. You know.
And I would also tell them that their fears are going to come along while they're doing it. And what I learned for me was I couldn't just like shove my fears in a corner and tell them to go away, because they didn't. They didn't listen to me. But what I found out worked for me was, maybe it's male energy or something, but I got into this righteous anger, yell at God in the mirror kind of a thing.
Really?
And I would say, because the first couple of years of trying to do this full time was very difficult. You had to retrain your whole brain to go from a steady salary with commission to no safety net. It was a big retraining of my way of thinking. And what I learned to do was to tell the fears, okay, come along, I'm going this path, whether it works or not, and if it crashes and burns, I'm going to do it till the bitter end, and that's it.
You know what I love about this story you just told? You're telling the story of commitment. You're telling the story of the focus. You're also talking about something inside of you that said, I want to do this. I'm called to do this. So therefore, I'm going to do this. And that's what it's going to take now.
And what surprises me is that I wasn't doing it from a Pollyanna New Age. I'm going to get out my crystals and I did all that. Okay, I got out my sage and all, but it was a matter for me. It was a matter of saying, by gosh, I am not going back. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I wasn't going back to the world I had spent so many years in.
You weren't meant to.
And so I just kept going, and gradually the fears fall away. And what you're left with is who you are. And
well, I think that once we get to that intersection of consciousness, you realize that fears are illusions anyway, because they come from something that was programmed in you a long time ago. So I always tell people, write them down and look at them and how old are they, and get facilitated around these fears, because their frequencies are operating in a physical body. So when this kind of energy comes along and amplifies it, it's going to come to the surface. And not everybody can handle that by themselves.
And you know, fears look really real when you're dealing with them. When you're looking at them in hindsight, you think, why was I wasting all my energy on that?
Years of staying in something that wasn't working. And you know, I think as we move along in life as human beings, I really believe we know square pegs from round holes, don't you?
I believe that when we get out of our own way, and I like to say I like to remember to breathe, or for me, when it gets too crazy, I like to go walk in the woods, because that works for me.
Feeds you.
And so I just go and get away from the computer and telephone and the bills and all the stuff of the world, and I remember what's real, And you still have to come back and deal with all those things, but you're dealing with it from a more real, centered place.
Yeah, I would call it being grounded.
Yeah, and that's going to be very important this summer because the energy is building. It's not reducing, it's going upwards.
No, I always say you want to ride the top of the wave or you want to be underneath the wave, and that is perception.
Yeah.
It is the perception. Well, don't we have a full moon on July 25th? Is that a part of the eclipse, isn't it?
Well, the actual solar eclipse is on July 11th.
Okay.
So what would come 2 weeks after that would be a full moon. And of course, that is going to be that's going to be in the sign Aquarius, which is innovative new ways of doing things. And of course, that is going to be the beginning of this T-square coming into precise alignment. It's already there now, but it's just a little cockeyed right now.
Well, maybe we need to hold back on that just a
Sure.
little and go back and look at this solar eclipse that's, if you finished with talking about the lunar eclipse, I mean, we got everything we need to know about that, you think?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so let's move into about the solar eclipse that's going to be happening on July 11th.
Yes, and that's going to be in the sign Cancer. So if people knew, for those who know astrology out there, you could go look in your chart and find out where 20 degrees of Cancer lands in your chart, and you would know what area of your life. We have what's called houses in astrology, which are just those little pie-shaped segments on a chart.
Yes.
And sometimes it will land maybe in your relationship house. Other times it may land in a career house. Other times maybe in a health and healing house. So if you knew where it was landing in your chart, you would know what area of your life is being affected. But for everybody, it's in the sign Cancer, and Cancer has to do with our family, our nurturing. There's like exoteric is regular worldly astrology, and there's esoteric. So exoteric is nurturing. Food. Well, there you feel bad, I'll give you a cupcake. On an esoteric level, Cancer has to do with nourishment. I'm going to feed your soul, not just your body.
It's the spirit.
I'm going to teach you how to fish, not just give you a fish.
Exactly.
And so there's multiple levels of this going on, and some of us are going to use this energy to I'm going to paint my deck will be my worldly thing that I'm going to do. Fix up my house, okay, summer errands. But on another level, I'm going to go sneak off into Eastern Oregon to do some camping to feed my soul.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it on multiple levels. One is my house needs a little bit of paint.
Right.
And on another level, my spirit needs a little get away from the computer time.
I think it would help people to be able to look at it from that more spiritual point of view, to be able to find the balance that's going to be needed, because most people that I know that come through my practice don't know how to play anymore.
Right, that's a
They
biggie.
don't know how to nurture themselves, what I would say in healthy ways.
Yes.
So that's all a part of that introspection, of getting
is.
to know who you are.
Yeah.
Right?
And the other part would be is many people in the New Age or New Thought community are better at giving than receiving. And so there would be lessons in where have we gone into excessive, inappropriate caretaker mode.
Oh, yeah.
And where do we need to pull back and let others kind of stand in their own power instead of doing it for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is going to hit people on multiple levels depending on, what their worldly situation is at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to look at that T-square.
Yes.
Maybe
sure.
you could talk a little bit about
Sure.
this T-square, because it's the kicker, isn't it? I mean, isn't it the sort of like
think of
the
it like
connector of
think of it like the catalyst. It's the thing that's pushing us to get moving.
Okay.
We've all been sitting around saying, oh, one of these days I'm going to get around to doing this thing, okay? Well, this is the get off your backside and get in gear. But remember, it's just in the very beginning of Aries, Libra, and Capricorn. It's just at this early seed stage, and at the early seed stage, you don't necessarily know what that seed's going to flower into.
Yeah.